Hi folks, I'm Dennis. Today I'm going to show you how to remove the rear wheel on a 2003 Honda VT750 Ace Edition, American Classic Edition motorcycle. So you can replace the rear tire, inspect the brakes. Thanks for checking out my video. Let's get started. First thing you want to do is make sure that you've got your motorcycle properly jacked and secured. If you're not sure how to do that, or you're interested in a motorcycle jack, check out my other video on the Sears Craftsman motorcycle jack. Alright, what you're going to need for this job is you're going to need a pair of pliers for the cotter pin at the bottom of the wheel. You're going to need a 22mm wrench or socket for the left side axle nut. You need this side, I think it's a 27mm on the right side. I don't have a 27mm, so I'm going to use my least favorite tool, which is an adjustable wrench. I'm going to need an 8mm wrench for the chain adjusters. I'm going to need a 14mm wrench or socket for the brake lever to take it off. And after I get the cotter pin out of the stopper arm, I need a 12mm wrench. That should be all I need. The procedure basically is you disconnect the stopper arm, you disconnect the brake lever, you loosen the chain adjusters on both sides, you loosen the axle nuts, take the axle out of the left side, and drop the wheel, take the chain off. That's a procedure. So take the cotter pin out. Make sure you get a new cotter pin. I wouldn't recommend reusing them. They tend to get weak at the bend points. So get you a new one, same size. Take your 12mm wrench. Take the nut off. It's got a rubber washer. Comes on it too. Pop the bolt out. Pull that stopper arm down. I recommend putting it all kind of back together. That way you don't have to keep up with what goes where, except for the cotter pin. Take a 14mm wrench and take off the brake lever adjustment. You could probably take a Sharpie and mark that, unless you're going to change your brakes, and it won't matter because that'll change. But slide that off, put that back on the way it goes. This is also a good opportunity to take things apart and clean them real good if you want to. Next thing to do is to loosen up the axle nuts. Ratchet on one side. Like I say, in my case, I'm having to use a ratchet and an adjustable wrench because I don't have a 27mm wrench. I'd much rather have one, I just don't. So I'm going to put my 22mm socket on the left side, and I'm going to use my adjustable wrench on the right side. You got to use an adjustable wrench. Make sure it's snug so you don't round off your nuts. Now that that's done, you can loosen up the chain adjusters. Turn this one clockwise to loosen it. Both the chain adjusters turn clockwise to loosen. Alright, so that's done. Now I'm going to finish taking this nut off. You got a nut and a washer. generally once you get that loose, you can just give it a little push. Now I read like in the maintenance manual for this bike that you can just roll the chain off at this point. I don't know about that. I can't roll mine off. I don't have enough slack in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take the axle out and drop the wheel, and then I'll get the chain out. There might be a better way. I just don't know what it is. And there's probably a good opportunity to have help, but I don't. So I'm going to do it the best I can. That's what just fell out on the other side was the spacer. That goes between the swing arm and the center hub on the wheel. You got to keep the wheel supported as you slide the axle out. There's another spacer over here. That's the axle. Keep it oriented the right way so you don't put it in there backwards. That's the spacer on the left side. By the way, you got to remember on the left side the spacer's got a shoulder on it. You got to make sure that goes in the right way. Clean it up so you can see it. I ride a lot so my bike gets nasty. I'd rather ride it than clean it. You can see there's a shoulder right here. You got to make sure you get that in the right way when you go to put it back together. I recommend putting all of that back together on the axle like so. Take the other spacer from the other side, put it on there, the washer and a nut. Away they go. Now I don't have to worry about remembering how that goes together. I got it all put back together. Let the chain fall through there. I can just take it off the sprocket now, like so. Get it back to the back. I don't have it jacked up quite high enough to roll out from under the fender, but that's okay. Okay, before you go rolling the wheel too much, what you want to do is go ahead and pull the brake hub out. There's a little keeper pin right in here in the brake lever that'll slide out, so be careful you don't lose it. But this whole brake hub just comes out. Okay, that's how your brakes look. Gives you a good chance to inspect your rear brakes. Mine look good. I'll clean all that up before I put it back together, but for now you can set this off to the side. Now I can take the wheel and just lean it out and get it out from underneath the bike. There you have it. Back wheel's out. Now I can go take it to the shop, get the tire replaced, and put it back together. Alright, well, now I got my wheel with my new tire back from the shop. I took it off, carried it up there, had them put a new tire on the wheel, new tube and tire, and cleaned up my spokes while I had it off. So now I've got to put it all back together. I've inspected my drum brakes, they're fine. My rear brakes, no problem. So that's easy to put back together. Just goes in like so. Now the way the axle goes in, it goes in through the swing arm. Then between the swing arm and the wheel, you've got that big spacer. That's the bigger of the two spacers on the chain side. Go through the wheel, then the smaller spacer goes on the brake side. Axle goes all the way through the neck to the other side of the swing arm, and then you got a washer and a nut. You want to get your chain threaded up on the sprocket first, and then you can lift the wheel into place, wheel and tire into place, and put the axle through there. Sometimes it's always best if you got a little bit of help on this stage of it. I don't have any help, so we'll see how I do on my own. Make sure you get the chain all the way on the sprocket. Once you get the axle started into the wheel, then you got it to hold that up, so it's not quite so bad. See, I've only got it part of the way in there, but I've got that spacer in there. Now I can get to the other side and get the other spacer and the axle nut put on there. Basically, you just have to keep working it. Get up under the tire, hold it up with your leg, and then work that axle through there, holding the other spacer in on this side. Make sure you get it between the drum or the brake hub and the swing arm, and then you can, from the chain side, then you can push it right through. Once you get it all the way through, then you're good to go. Then you can put the washer and the nut on there, and you're fine. Alright, so next step is to attach the stopper arm to the hub. I left my bolt and washers in here so I didn't lose them. So you take the bolt, run that through the hub, run that through the stopper arm. Take the seat washer, which is the rubber washer, put that on the bolt. Take the washer. I kind of like to wipe everything down as I'm going, but take the washer, put it on, put the nut on. The torque spec on this nut is 14 foot-pounds. My 1/2-inch drive torque wrench will dial down to that. I've got a 3/8 drive wrench. You can use either one. If you use a 3/8 torque wrench, 3/8 drive torque wrench, most of those are calibrated in inch-pounds, so you've got to convert that into foot-pounds, which is going to be 14 times 12, which is 140 to 168 inch-pounds. Be sure to inspect all your components as you're putting it back together. If the seat washer or anything like that's boogered up, needs to be replaced, make sure you replace it before you put everything back together and ride. Alright. The reason that the torque spec is so light on this one is because that seat washer is rubber. Now, there's a cotter pin that goes in this bolt, and you want to put that on there because it keeps that nut from backing off. Do your absolute best to not reuse cotter pins. Cotter pins break once they've been bent, so try to get you a new one. Should be the same size as the one that came out. You put it in there and you just bend the legs back, one over each side, and crimp that down, and then you're good to go. So that part's done. Next thing you do is you put the attach the brake rod back to the brake arm. And then we'll adjust the brakes after here in a little while. But you want to make sure you don't get hung up in the muffler bracket or the pipe bracket or the stopper arm. This little barrel connector goes into the brake arm. Make sure it's engaged in both edges of both sides of the fork. You got the nut that goes onto the brake arm, and you see how it's concave on one end. That's to fit against that barrel connector. Once you've adjusted your brakes and you're done, you want to make sure that concave section is seated well on that barrel connector so it doesn't pop out on you. You just actuate that brake arm, put the threaded rod into the brake rod through there, and then thread on the nut. That nut also helps keep the barrel connector centered in the forks of the brake arm. I'm going to stop right there because we'll have to adjust the brakes. What a lot of folks do is they say they've had these nuts back off. I've never had that happen on mine because of that concave face. But a lot of folks will put a lock nut on the back of this. They'll take another nut same size and thread it onto that rod once they've got their brakes adjusted, and then they'll lock that down on the back of this to keep it from moving. I may do that in the future. I'm not going to do it right now for this video, but something to keep in mind if you have a problem with that. Alright, well that's about it for taking off the back wheel and putting it back on. The only things left to do are to tension the chain, adjust the free play in the back brake, and then torque down the axle nut. I'll address the chain and the brake adjustment in other videos, so please check them out. And then once you're done with those, you torque the axle nut down to 69 foot-pounds, and it's all done, ready to ride. So thanks for checking out my video. I appreciate it. I hope I helped you. Please leave some comments, and if you'd like to see me do something in the future, or got any suggestions for me, please leave them there. I'd be glad to see them. Thanks a lot.